मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार चित्तानि नाहम् न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदोर्नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धो न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम्.
Hello, my friends. Good morning. Happy Sunday, wherever you are. And welcome to the weekly Satsang. So once again, Sat means truth. Sangha is a community of sentient beings, usually humans, seeking truth. Seeking truth. Not yet totally awake in that truth. So we call this series Towards Self-Realization, self-realization, self-recognition, knowing the self once again, the return of the memory of who we truly are. So in these sanghas, what I want to share with you is just insights and revelations that I experienced myself and that I feel compelled to share with you. It's not because I want you to agree or disagree or validate or invalidate what I'm saying, but to point out a way of reflecting that may or may not be useful to you. But that's the intention. That's the sankalpa. And yes, somebody asked, usually humans, because there are meta-humans as well in different lokas, but that's another story. Usually humans is what I refer to. The conditioned mind is what I refer to when I say usually humans. The social mind, the constructed mind, the ego mind, etc. So today what I thought I'll share with you a personal take on the first two principles of yoga. Yoga means being connected with the source of all experience, which is also the source of all modes of knowing, all knowers, all things known, and infinite possibilities, the ground of all existence. I am before I am this, that, or whatever. That experience is also called moksha, or freedom from all conditioned thought. So today I thought what I'd do is, as we move from karma to yoga, as we move from karma to kriya, and in this case I'm using the word kriya very precisely and uniquely. As you know, kriya has several meanings, but kriya, as I'm using right now, is action that doesn't add karmic baggage, karmic burden, or express itself as the pain body that is the root of all suffering. And in order to understand karma, all you have to do is close your eyes right now and listen to your internal dialogue. And immediately you'll be aware of a conversation that you're having with yourself. And that conversation is about you, your conditioned mind as it pertains to other conditioned minds and situations, circumstances, events, and people. And that recycles as stories that show up as bodies and their experiences that we call the world. So right now, I am, which is the self, is expressing itself as all this, what's happening in this head, experience of this body, the computer, you, all this is happening now. And even as I say it's happening now, it's over, as you know. By the time you hear these words, they don't exist. So every experience is already in the past, even the experience we call now. But when we think about that experience, then automatically that generates past memories, future desires, sanskaras, vasanas, and the recycling of karma, which also then evolves into higher levels or expanded levels of both ambiguity, clarity, paradox, contradiction, and clarity at the same time. So what is happening is we are moving from being a prisoner of the conditioned mind, which is karma, and the body is that prisoner as well. And so is the interpretation of the world as we currently have it. It's a prison. Remember Rumi's poem, why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open? The prison can't be seen, but it is a prison that limits our ability to experience infinite possibilities, synchronicity, what people call grace, self-regulation, homeostasis, self-evolution, all in the direction of abstraction and creativity and vision and expanded consciousness and transcendence, total transcendence. Ultimately, the big samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, and conscious samadhi as well, as in death. So today I thought I'll share with you my take on yamas and niyamas, and then I'll be able to answer some of your questions to the best of my ability. So yamas and niyamas are usually regarded as principles of social conduct and personal conduct. Today we would call that emotional and social intelligence. But actually, they are not really, in my opinion, moral injunctives or moral injunctions. I have always rebelled all my life against moral authority, whether it comes from priests or seers or sages or rishis or gurus. For some reason, I rebelled against that. I don't know why. And yet I had a lot of respect for all these luminaries. But I found morality, self-righteous morality, always uncomfortable. I read once, I think it was H.G. Wells, who said, self-righteous morality is jealousy with a halo. And I relate to that. I also think that most of us, in fact, all of us, and I include myself, as long as we resort to our conditioned mind, then we are in one way or another participating in cunning hypocrisy, which goes on the term of morality. So when I talk about the yamas and niyamas, I'm not talking from a moral or even an ethical point of view. I'm just talking about, as we did earlier when I shared the four fundamental truths. And we need to keep coming back to those four fundamental truths and the great hymn of Adi Shankara, because it is the hymn that takes us beyond all human constructs. So I was thinking this morning before I was planning to come here, do I have a take on the yamas and niyamas? Yamas being interpersonal principles of fundamental truth, and niyamas being intrapersonal, more social observances. So I made some notes for you and for myself. The first yama, and I think if we only focus today only on the first yama, we'll be all set for this age of darkness that we're living in, referred to as KRIYA, the age of ignorance, where we are imprisoned by human constructs. So, ahimsa, as usually translated in all the commentaries that I've read, a lot of commentaries here on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the word ahimsa actually, it seems, goes back to the time of Mahavir Jain, who preceded Buddha. And in all the commentaries, it's translated as non-violence, which is kind of a negative connotation. Instead of peace presence, it says non-violence. Nevertheless, that's how it's translated. And Mahavir Jain was, Mahavir means the big warrior, the big spiritual warrior, the greatest courageous human being who was totally in peace consciousness. It is my understanding that Mahavir Jain inspired the Buddha, and that gave rise to, what we call the perennial philosophies and other great traditions and all the wisdom traditions that, including Christianity, where there's the expression turning the other cheek, which people assume to be very passive and sometimes even passive aggressive. So let me clarify what I think ahimsa is. Ahimsa is when your loving awareness dominates all experience. And loving awareness is simple awareness. That's it. Simple awareness without judgment, without labels, without definitions, without evaluation, without opinion, without description. When loving awareness dominates every experience, and we can even say simple awareness dominates every experience, it is imbued with loving, subtle intentionality called sankalpa. And that loving awareness is enough to heal, not by what you do, not by what you say, not by what you express in any way, thought, feeling, emotion, imagination, but just by presence. Presence is loving awareness. That's it. Presence is loving awareness, and loving awareness heals just by bringing you back to the memory of wholeness, the memory of fundamental truth as the unutterable, unmanifest, irreducible, acausal interrelatedness of existence, where me and the other are different expressions of the same self, knowing itself as infinite experiences. So loving awareness is ahimsa, the presence of being, heals all beings. Patanjali says, when you're perfectly established in this awareness of pure being and loving awareness, all beings cease to feel hostility. Every being ceases to feel hostility, because feeling, thinking, speaking, perceiving are modified expressions of fundamental awareness, and they get kind of hijacked, ambushed by the conditioned mind. And all we have to do is go beyond it. Anytime we feel the absence of loving awareness, we can always ask ourselves, am I aware? Am I present? And that's enough. So that leads automatically to the second yama, satya. So satya, of course, as usually translated, is speaking the truth and always focusing on truth as we understand it. But truth is a very difficult concept, isn't it? There's absolute truth, that which never changes, pure consciousness, purusha. And then there's relative truth as purusha vibrates, as prakriti. or we can even say the divine feminine, and all the vrittis that are called experiences. And the vrittis are all summarized, ultimately appear as thought. So thought is the culmination of all vrittis, or interpretation of vrittis. Vrittis are fluctuations, vibrations of Purusha manifesting as Prakriti. So what is Satya then? What is truth? What is truth is absolute truth and relative truth. So relative truth is a point of view. Okay, it's a perspective. As the Buddha said, only right perspective is either all perspectives or no perspectives. So when our speech and our action and our behavior are grounded in the knowing of absolute truth, which is transcendent and without cause, and in that truth, we see ourselves as the interdependent co-rising of all that is in a ceaseless dance of birth and death. Then we feel liberated, we feel connected spontaneously. Empathy, compassion, joy, equanimity all become truth automatically. And that leads to the third yama. In Sanskrit, it's asteya, very frequently translated as non-covetousness, non-jealousy, non-envy. But that's automatic when you see yourself as the interdependent co-rising of all existence that is constantly recycling as form and phenomena. Okay, that is asteya. There is no need to covet, to be jealous, to be envious, to validate your own story, to invalidate another story, to hang on to this karmic baggage. So asteya, and the fourth yama here is brahmacharya, which is usually translated as celibacy. But that's a difficult concept for a lot of people as well. Sexual celibacy. But sexual celibacy is only one aspect of economy of expenditure of energy. So in nature, there's a principle: do less and accomplish more, but ultimately do nothing and accomplish everything. Everything is happening because existence knows how to take care of itself. It's self-regulating, self-evolving, self-creative, self-organizing, infinite, and unpredictable. And that is the source of creativity. So brahmacharya is all of that. Restraints in the way of channeling energy to the highest purpose. Of course, sexual energy is similar to spiritual energy. It's arousing. It makes you alert. It makes you fresh. It makes you excited. And so sexual and spiritual energy are same. Ecstasy means ektasis, stepping out of space-time and causality. And we can talk elsewhere sometime on sexuality and spirituality. But sexuality, spirituality, values, yamas, niyamas, all understood in context can indeed lead to ecstasy. Physical ecstasy, mythical ecstasy, sacred ecstasy, all available to us through this understanding of brahmacharya as well. And the final yama is what is called aparigraha, non-clinging. I think a very interesting take on aparigraha would be getting unstuck. So we are constantly stuck with identifying with a very limited range of experience. It comes, it goes ceaselessly, but we try to hold on to it and then we can't. And that causes distress. So if we are having pleasure, we are trying to hold on to it, afraid that it will turn soon into pain. And if we're having pain, we are worried about when it will turn into pleasure, etc. So a parigraha actually grounds you in a state of being which is beyond hope and despair, which is beyond pain and pleasure, which is the ultimate equanimity that we call peace. So these are the 5 yamas. And I think today maybe we should just stay with these 5 yamas and the deeper understanding, because I see that you have a lot of questions. And I'll summarize them now. Ahimsa, loving presence, dominates. Satya, a deeper understanding of absolute and relative truth. Asteya, interdependent co-arising with gratitude and non-covetousness. Brahmacharya, optimal use of energy and towards creativity, creative expression, higher consciousness, joy and ecstasy. And aparigraha, grounded in equanimity. What does this all lead to? This all leads to ultimately what the great spiritual traditions call liberation. So it's a journey. It's a going forth and a coming back. But then after we go forth and come back, then we realize that we never left. Every fluctuation is born and dies in that which never left. Okay, that's what it means when spiritual masters say, I was never born. And therefore, I'm not subject to death. Birth and death are the ceaseless appearance and disappearance in timeless now. Birth and death are happening. And so life is the continuum of birth and death. And birth and death are the on-off switches, including epigenetic switches that give us the experience of what we call life. So what is life? Well, it depends on how you define it. Some people with no romance in their heart would say life is a sexually transmitted incurable condition. Life is a continuum of birth and death. Life is a continuum of experiences, and the experiences are fluctuations of the self. That's Shakti, and that's how manifestation occurs. But once you understand the mechanics, and these yamas are just the 5 fundamental principles of your relationship with yourself as it pertains to others. The other is yourself, a fragmented aspect of yourself. But when you experience the whole aspect of yourself, then you're liberated in what is called loving awareness, ahimsa. And my teachers and masters and gurus tell me that this could be the only yama that is required for the age of Kali Yuga, for the age of darkness, for the age where we need to cut the veil of ignorance. Ahimsa is enough. The rest will follow. So maybe next time we can do the niyamas in the same way, intrapersonal observances. And once we ground ourselves in this experience of yama and niyama as fundamental truths, we can also address the 4 basic fundamental truths that we share every time we start this program, every time we end it. We share those fundamental truths, and we can keep sharing them. It takes a while for a fruit to ripen, then one day it falls, and then you're liberated. It's kind of very freeing, isn't it? So when the fruit falls, the child is born and cannot return to the womb. No way going back. And that is to be in spirit. That is not a mental event at all. So let us now share the questions. I have them written down, but they're also here. Ramana Krishnan Raju, does self-realization refer to annihilation of the mind? And I am. So be careful here. It's not annihilation of the mind. If you close your eyes, you will experience the mind. Okay, right now. Unless you are in Nirvikalpa Samadhi and you are Brahman, you will experience the mind. But even as Brahman, the mind is what is projecting as the universe. So it is, in my opinion, not annihilation of the mind, it is non-identification with the mind, because the mind is constantly fluctuating between pleasure, pain, opinion, non-opinion, story, other people's stories, etc. It is not, I know it's frequently also referred to as ego death, but as long as you have a body, there is karma, because the body is the projection of karma, and the body is the projection of karma, which experiences the world as karma as well. Think of it like this, if I may use a modern analogy. Okay, so the world appearance right now is a movie that you're seeing. Okay, but the movie needs a projector, hardware. Your body is the hardware, including the brain. But the body itself is also a modified form of awareness. It's changing. It's a changing instrument that gives you the changing movie that you're seeing, calling the world. This is a changing instrument. Okay, so what is running this instrument right now is the mind, intellect, and ego. So what is the mind, intellect, and ego? It's the software. But in order to have the software, there has to be some coding, some programming. The coding is the jiva, the individual soul, the conscious agent, modified by sanskara, karma, vasana. The coding. Who's coding? What is coding? Jiva. Jiva is modified Atman. Atman recycling as the conscious agent interacting with other conscious agents. What's beyond the jiva? The coder. What is coding? Somebody has to code. Who's programming? Who's putting the code? And that's Atman, which is directly connected to Brahman. Universal consciousness is universal consciousness. So now we have a kind of a modern metaphor. We know what the movie is, the song is, the file, if you click on it, what it shows. But we also know that it's an expression of an instrument, which we call the changing body, that biological organisms, including trees and animals and every sentient being, are modes of knowing, instruments of knowing. And the instrument is coded with a software program, coding, a programmer, and ultimately Brahman coding the whole universe. Now, this is amazing, isn't it? If we can have this experience, and this is called waking up. It's also total joy. It's truth, unfiltered, unabashed, unembarrassed, infinite, non-tarnished joy. And it is awareness, loving awareness. That's it. So now let me see some of the other questions. Vishal, do you have constant experience that you're eternal consciousness? I can shift to it, yes, and I can get distracted also. So it's all good the way it is. Prashant Desai, what is the need to experience? Well, the way it was originally explained to me a long time ago was consciousness wants to become conscious of itself. And when consciousness becomes conscious of itself, it knows itself as what we call the me and other. Me and other go together. Okay, there is no other in the absence of me. There's no me in the absence of the other. Other includes everything. Everything is me ultimately, or a fragmented aspect of me. So what is the need to experience? There's no need, but it's fun, right? To experience and play with it. And that's the creative play that we call Leela. And then we have Anas Chaneb. What is death? Death is the on switch of experience. Sorry, death is the off switch of experience. Birth is the on switch of experience. You need both on and off for any experience. And this is happening all the time, on, off. Your genes are going on and off. Your perceptions are going on and off. Your thoughts are going on and off. Your emotions are going on and off. Every experience is going on and off. And it is going on and off ceaselessly, without any interruption whatsoever, right? You can't have an on without an off. We can't have an off without the on. So the on-off switches are what we call experience. Now, most of them are happening unconsciously as a result of karma, baggage, and whatever, conditioned mind. But if you can stop for a moment and experience presence, then you'll see that it is you that's going on and off as all experience, as me and the other. You know, the Africans have a saying, Ubuntu, I am because you are. You are because I am. So it's all the play of consciousness, which we call experience. And so we can play consciously, or we can, as we are doing most of the time, play unconsciously, which causes suffering. You know, the five kleshas: not knowing truth, clinging, grasping, recoiling, identifying with the social construct, ego, and the fear of death. These are all delusions based on false identity. Next question, Prashant. Actually, let me explain that a little more. So if I put my hand on your thigh and I don't move it, after a while, you won't know it's there. Just in the same way, after a while, we forget that our skin is feeling our clothes. Only when you put attention to it, you feel it. So if I put my hand on your thigh and don't move it, after a while, you won't know it's there. But then if I move it again, especially if it's your thigh, you might say, what the heck are you trying to do? Okay. Experience can only happen if there's on-off. That's it. Even when you touch your hands, there's a on-off signal going on. Electrons are bumping against electrons. They cause resistance. And that resistance is the on switch of experience. And when there's off switch of experiences, deep sleep, and so on. Many other off switches of experience. In the 24-hour cycle, we go through many ons and offs, but they're all happening ceaselessly. Okay. And who you are is both the on and the off. What is the need for experience? Experience itself. Otherwise, consciousness would not know itself as this or that experience. Play of consciousness, creative play of consciousness based on the magical lies of perception. Prashant Thakuri says, can science understand what is mind? So this is so interesting to me that these questions are still asked, and actually they dominate a lot of the scientific conversation. Can science explain mind? Now ask yourself, did mind come first or science come first? Okay. It's obvious. Mind came first. Okay. So mind explains science. Science cannot explain mind because mind is the mother of science. And what is the mother of mind? Awareness. Because the mother of mind, awareness, is all minds. And these all minds are interacting with each other at all times. And that is the interisness, that is the matrix of existence, and that vibrates as all existence, not just this universe, infinite universes and infinite versions of knowers and knowings and all of that. Bhakti Sagar, Deepak, sir, don't have to call me sir. Do you remember your past life karmas? Everyone does, okay? Everyone does. Let me show you how. Again, if you close your eyes right now and listen to your internal dialogue, the conversation you're having with yourself, That is all your karmas right now. Personal, ancestral, past lives. Yes, all of it. All of it. If I move my hands right now, the karmic imprint of my ancestors as genetic and epigenetic activity is responsible for every activity in my body. Every activity in my body. Mental, physical. I can't speak, I can't move, I can't hear, I can't perceive, I can't think unless all my ancestors are genetically and epigenetically active right now as what I call the changing physical body. So, do I remember my past lives? Yeah, of course. They're influencing this life right now. Everybody remembers past lives. They occur as dreams, as insights, as imagination, as images, as all kinds of sensations. All you have to do is be present to them in loving awareness. Rishi Tiwari, if there are infinite lokas that can be created, don't you think there would be ways to find out? Yes, of course, there are ways to find out. Right now, of course, the current thinking, if you read people like Sean Carroll and others who believe in string theory, Michio Kaku, and many others, they will give you this insight that there could be infinite versions of you in infinite dimensions of space and time, other dimensions of space and time. So that's current mathematical string theory and also what we call multiverse theory. But I think the fatal flaw of these theories is they are physicalist theories, mathematically predicting that there are other domains of experience, because every loka is a domain of experience. Loka, Sanskrit, means location. But here's what we need to know. Location in space-time is a projection. Location in space-time is a projection. And so depending on your state of awareness, there can be infinite projections. Can we experience these lokas? Yes, and this is what the Tibetan Book of the Dead is all about. This is what the deeper truth of Kashmir Shaivism and all the great traditions, even the great traditions of Jainism, Buddhism, and different traditions, Christian traditions. In my father's house are many mansions. These are lokas. Lokas are not locations in space-time. They're frequency domains of consciousness that project different identities of the same self. Different identities of the same self in different experiences of the same self, in different dimensionalities of the same self. So do I remember my past lives? Yeah, they're influencing my behavior right now, and I can actually go beyond it if I want to. Elvira Garman, can you explain more specific? I is free of ego. So what is aware of the ego? I am aware of the ego. What is the ego? The ego is all the things I selectively identify with and not identify with. Ever since I was born, in this continuum of lifetime experience, I've had so many experiences. I don't remember them all. Some were joyful, some were painful. But my selective identification of that gives me a provisional identity, which is also changing all the time. You can't hold on to it. That's why you go through these periods when you actually go through deep reflection, deep contemplation, and deep meditation. People do have experiences that are called dark night of the soul. They may have even the heebie-jeebies, as they call them, the fear of nihilism, of total extinction. And yet, if you stay and abide in the experience of loving awareness, suddenly there's a breakthrough. And you see that you are free of all these constructs. That's the hymn, Adi Shankara's hymn, which we'll play towards the end again. Okay, so what's the next question? Hope Eva, divine feminine, male ego dominance. Divine feminine is not rising if it's controlled by male ego dominance. Yeah, that's true. But right now, forget about the divine feminine as either masculine or feminine. It's in all of us. In fact, as I mentioned before, what we call mitochondria, the energy producing factories in our body, are all aspects of the divine feminine, the divine Shakti, without which there would be no existence. And these divine Shaktis include everything from motherhood to self-power, to knowledge, to wisdom, to art, to science, to connection with nature, to sexuality, to alchemy, to transformation, to everything that we call experience moving in the direction of beauty, intuition, nurturing, affection, tenderness, including the homemaker. So the divine feminine is the mother of all healing energies. Masculine energies were important too in the tribal past for survival. But let's say we are done with that. Been there, done that. And the next adventure is the divine feminine, okay, in all its aspects. Seeing yourself in objects as beauty, seeing yourself in other sentient beings as love. That's the divine feminine, ultimately. What on a canto, what is Akashic? What is the Akashic records? The Akashic record, you might say, is the immeasurable treasure trove of all experiences, past, present, and future. And the immeasurable potential, all that was, is, and ever will be, but also that whole domain of the matrix, which we call the Akashic record, has infinite versions. It's incomprehensible mentally. Don't even try, okay? So if you try to mentally solve this, and that's why we call these satsangas, gatherings of seeking, because if we had all arrived, then we'd just shut up. There's nothing to say, okay? But we're saying it right now because we are seekers. And the Akashic record is our home from where we seek forth towards the mountaintop for that higher vision. Then we come back and tell others about it so they can also go to the mountain and have the same experience. But that we do for ourselves, not for anybody else. And ultimately, the Akashic record is all there is, okay? I have a book here, by the way, somewhere on the Akashic record by the European philosopher, who's a great friend of mine, that I just did an introduction to, but I can't find it right now. Okay, how do you experience Tattvamasi, Abindit? The way you experience Tattvamasi is by seeing yourself in every object, in every experience, in every sensation, in every image, in every feeling, in every thought, in every breath. You see yourself as the other. Tattvamasi, I am that. You are that. All this is that. That alone is. This is one of the highest Mahavakyas, along with Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, or Satchitananda. They all refer to the same ultimate truth. Somebody just asked, and I'll address this, Samantha. Thank you for sharing your LSD experience. And I wasn't planning to answer that question today, but let me share it with you anyway, because there's some misrepresentation of that LSD experience. It said I did it in a Harvard lab or whatever. It's not true. So 17 years old, in medical school, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, exchange students from Harvard, some faculty from Harvard, Timothy Leary in the news, and the Beatles, and coming to see Maharishi. This is the ecosystem, 1964, 1965, 1966. I entered medical school. in 1964. So with a number of exchange students from Harvard, as it turns out, with some of one or two faculty, we all had tried an experiment. We took whatever LSD was given to us. And by the way, I've never had it since then. I've done other rituals with other shamanic traditions, but never had the desire. Although I do believe that as we move forward, what we used to call hallucinogens are now being referred to as psychedelics, and a lot of them are referred to as medicinal plants, and a lot of them are also referred to as entheogens, getting in touch with the sacred, divine medicine. So all that is part of our ongoing education and learning. But my experience, age 17, looking with other medical students at a poster of Mother Teresa. And in the poster, I believe, as I remember, a long time ago, she was licking the wounds, the raw wounds of children with leprosy. And the myth, the story was she healed people just by touching them, kissing them, being present to them. And so my experience was, as I watched that poster, I was crying with compassion and I wanted to be a healer. And that influenced my life. Okay, so that was a very mind-expanding experience for me. And that led me into questioning everyday reality as edited reality from the conditioned mind. So much about LSD. And now and we can talk about this in the future. Sujit, how do we stop our thinking and be present? One thing that could be useful is stop once in a while and just ask yourself, am I present? And see what happens. And, just to be aware that you're not present is to be present. Try it. Or close your eyes and sometimes ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought will be. And then you watch it, okay? And you see that the thought emerges from the unknown, from para, infinite possibilities. Pashyanti, just the faint inkling of the appearance of thought. Madhyama, the internal dialogue. Bakery, speech and action. Watch it. And as you watch it, you'll also realize that you're not your thought. You're free from all thought. Mansi Bodhani, how to remain conscious and aware while having the experience. Enjoy the experience. Immerse yourself in the experience. Plunge yourself into the experience, but don't feel the compulsion to label it. That's it. Okay. Non-conceptual experience. Non-conceptual experience of body, of mind, of the world. And you'll be free. Lalit Singh, why has infinite consciousness taken the illusionary forms like mind-body? Why does it not stay absolute? Well, it does. It stays absolute, but it also flickers as the relative world of space-time and causality. That is what cosmic consciousness is to be in the world and not of it, to be local and non-local, to know yourself as divine, but also as human and as sentience. Juan Jose Bernardone, is the ego a divine creation? Everything is a divine creation. There is nothing that is not a divine creation, even that which we could call diabolical. So they go together. Sacred and profane go together. Divine, diabolical. Devil is the divine, feeling ill, disconnected. Why so? Well, infinite means infinite. All experience is by contrast. There's no experience without contrast. Visha Shende, should we all stop doing all other activities, move our goal to self-realization? Well, a lot of people, it doesn't make sense that they're not ready. So it's all fine. Do what feels natural to you and just know that all is well. The infinite is knowing itself in infinite ways. and constantly not only recycling, but also evolving. So that's the gift we have. Thanks for submitting your questions. And this is from Punacha. I believe we are at the end of our session today. Next time, the niyamas, modern contemporary experiential understanding of fundamental truth, if that's what you want. Okay, let me know. And thanks for joining today. Deep gratitude to all of you.
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्तपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदोर्नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञ अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न बन्धो न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्य चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभूत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवो